this because there's no gavel. Right, we've got a reasonable impact agenda, or at least we seem to have, given the number of visitors we have this evening. So I'm going to crack on, if I may. Welcome you all to this meeting of the Oundle Town Council Planning Committee. And our first item on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence, and there are apologies from Councillor Adams, the Deputy Mayor. So we accept those apologies? Absolutely. Good. That brings us straight on to representations from interested parties. First application we're going to be looking at is the Reserve Matters application for Miller's Field. And we have two representatives of town here with some slides to talk us through that application. So without further ado, if I can hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've got a relatively short presentation that I'll go through quite quickly. Is there anything anyone wants me to focus on one in particular, or shall I just dive in and ask questions at the end? Just want to
Dive in.
So Miller's Oundle, we have an outline application that was approved in autumn last year, and we've since submitted the Reserve Matters application, which is what we're taking today. As a reminder, this is the outline commission site plan, so 14 home scheme. The sort of the ingress and egress and the kind of the basics of that layout were set, but obviously as part of this Reserve Matters approval, we've been refining that. And I'll flip on in a second to the latest one. You can see here that it's 14 homes. We had two different methodologies in the previous version. We've obviously got the allotments which are being retained, the biodiversity area to the south, which is being retained, and then a communal garden in the centre. If we flip on to what is the latest proposal, it's not the best image, let's see if it looks a bit better. This is where we've got to, so actually largely very similar. We've slightly broken out the terraces to the south, so we've got two distinct terraces with a sort of a visual gap through the middle, so that the planting will mean that it's not a path we walk through, but it creates that kind of visual break, which creates nice sidelines, etc. We've retained this communal garden to the centre. We've retained we've got provision for allotment parking as well as parking for the units themselves. We've got this pathway through that creates a very sort of deliberate, obvious route through the nature area to the south. I think that probably gives a good kind of overview. Flip on to the next slide, we can come back to this one if you've got any further questions on that. This gives us, I won't dwell on this in part because I'm not a civil engineer, but there has been a really detailed thought process that's gone into the below ground drainage, use of suds, etc. There's a detailed proposal to that seeks to discharge one of our conditions on the site. So yeah, the civils has been brought through in a lot of detail, and I know that flooding to this brook to the south is a concern, and that's something that's been known and worked with these proposals. In terms of the landscape, so this provides a bit more of a kind of, this flashes out the detail of that site plan a bit more, so you can see that each of the properties have their own individual garden, and that serves a sort of terrace and then a grassy area to each of those properties. And then you've also got this communal area in the centre that in part helps deal with the levels, and I'll come on to that in a second, but it's a very sloped site, so that's something we have to work really hard with when getting this plan together. But we've managed to sort of turn that into a nice sort of visual amenities. We've got timber sleepers that sort of act as retaining walls, but create quite a nice sort of path through the landscape, and with a kind of a communal focal point here, which is sort of left quite bare bones at the moment, but gives a spot for the community to gather. Now, so yeah, we've obviously got the parking you can see here. We've given really careful thought to the sort of the surfacing proposals, and also we've got a B&G requirement on this site. We have to achieve that net positive gain. So where we can, we have retained all trees unless we need to take them down to create access. And in the main, we've left this area largely untouched to help deliver those B&G proposals. This gives you the site section, which gives you an idea of those levels and how quite difficult a site it is really in terms of dealing with those level changes. We've sort of managed to massage the site a bit more than we've managed to do in that outline stage. So we've managed to avoid any sort of really big, unsightly, over-engineered retaining solutions, and we've kept them sort of minimal but relatively frequent in order to deal with that level change at sort of smaller intervals. And we've managed to retain a sort of deviation plan gradient throughout the site, so you've not got any areas that are really sort of steeply sloped, which is quite an achievement really. It was very much one of those things where we were balancing on a knife edge throughout most of it, but I do believe that the strategy we've got is the best we can get on that site, and it creates for a nice sort of amenity and space for people. This is just a bit of kind of illustration of what it's going to look like. We'll come up to the house types in a second, but it brings to life in 3D a little bit more what that site plan will look like. And I think, in terms of scale for the site and context, I think it sits really nicely. This is the dwelling type proposals, so they're what we call a bungalow plus typology. So we've got 14 of the same unit type throughout the scheme. The majority of that living space is on the ground floor, with a bedroom or potentially 2 bedrooms, however you configure it, on the upstairs. And the majority of that living space is on the ground floor. And it's also a really flexible space, so in this configuration you can see it's really open, but there's various ways that you can sort of reconfigure that, and it's sort of designed to adapt to your future requirements. So it's aimed very much at that kind of older downsizing population that are looking to move into a home that's going to sort of grow with them as they go into their later years. In terms of materials, so brickwork-wise, we've got the main sort of the front-facing facade of both of those terraces will be sort of load-bearing brick facade with flush mortar, and it's sort of in keeping with that light stone visual requirement, heritage requirements that you can see. We've got an example over here. On the rear, so the facade that's facing away from the road, from the front of the terraces, proposed is for render, and that colour and detail have to be decided, but that's proposed for the rear. And then you've got slate roofs, metal cladding, so it's really high quality finish, metal rain goods, etc. So we're going for really high quality visual finish here. And that is, I think that just sort of takes you through that's the materials palette. So we've got the slate, American stone. And then I think we've just got a few CGI visuals. So yes, this gives you a bit of an idea. This is sort of a CGI illustration that Morton Kirk and our architects have pulled together, but gives you an idea that it's kind of almost like an house bungalow feel with the solar panels to all of the houses. And it gives you a sense of what that central shared garden space would look like. And I think that is it. I tried to keep it very short. Any questions?
So, any of the councillors have any particular questions to put at this stage?
I do, but maybe those.
Do we want to hear from
Yes.
Yeah.
other parties first? Right. There's at least one member of the public who has come along to speak to us as well. So, if you'd like to come and join us.
Well, I'm afraid the only visual you've got is me. So apologies for that. But anyway, just to give you a little bit of background, my name is Mark Quigley. I live on the Warren Bridge estate in Arundel, which backs onto Liverpool Brook, which is the south side of Miller's Field that you're looking at. This area has experienced flooding for at least 30 years, and flooding has worsened over time due to several reasons, as well as climate change. I represent 6 houses along the brook. 4 of these properties have flooded on 4 occasions in the last 10 years. I first raised this issue with the County Council 20 years ago and have worked continuously with them to find a solution. I tell you, life is extremely difficult when your home floods, and very stressful whenever heavy rain is forecast in an increasingly flood-prone area. So what progress have we made today? And I must say, I presented here 4 years ago, almost to the day actually. In 2020, the affected residents formed a management company and agreed to jointly fund a solution developed by the council's lead local flood authority. Since then, we've made good progress and are now in the final stages of agreeing a solution with all the surrounding landowners. So what's our position on the proposed development? I'm not objecting to the proposed development. In fact, there are some very good things within it. And as one of the surrounding landowners, Town is supportive of our objectives and is working with the flood authority to find a mutually acceptable solution. I remain hopeful that a responsible approach will present any difficulties. However, until the flood authority have approved the drainage plans and discussions about the flood scheme have concluded, we must have assumed that a solution may not be reached. In that case, residents living alongside Liverpool Brook will need assurance that the drainage plans will not worsen the existing flood situation. The proposal in the plan, I understand, is to dump the excess water into the brook, which already overflows and floods. It's imperative, therefore, that the plan is thoroughly scrutinised and approved by the flood authority before this condition is discharged. I've looked on the website today, and there is no such evidence that the flood authority has looked at it yet. It may be it's under consideration, I don't know. But the last comment on this stated, we would advise there is insufficient information available to comment on the acceptability of the proposed surface water drainage scheme for the proposed development. So that, looking today, there's nothing else in advance of that. That's the latest position. I would also request the council to scrutinise the landscaping plan to ensure the privacy of the residents backing onto the development is maintained and the net biodiversity is increased. Following a discussion with Town earlier this month, I understand that work on this is still ongoing. Our flood prevention scheme, privacy and landscaping are linked, in that a proposal is being developed involving wetlands, which will hopefully resolve flooding, increase net biodiversity and maintain privacy. The current landscape plan shows a net biodiversity loss of 12%, instead of a gain of 10%. Sarah Postlethwaite, who is the planning ecologist at Northants Council, wrote on the 16th of July 2026, a 12% loss was shown on the latest metric submitted for the outline application. That's the outline application. And with the current proposed landscaping, even less of the habitat will be retained. She went on to say, my only other comment on the proposed landscaping is that it contains a lot of new shrub, or scrub, should I say. It would be preferable to retain more of the existing trees, scrub and grassland, as this will provide better habitat for the reptiles. And that's something I've made a comment on the planning portal. I don't understand why you take away the existing shrub, replace it, and have a net loss of 10% biodiversity. This would also, maintaining this shrub and trees and grassland, would also maintain the privacy of the residents in Warren Bridge. And on my call a few weeks ago, and I put this in writing, I would pay any reasonable additional costs for additional extra tree planting to not only protect residents' privacy, but also to improve biodiversity. So what's my request to you? With a few small changes by the developer, and working in cooperation with the surrounding landowners, there's a real opportunity to achieve the objectives of all parties. We are desperate to stop this flooding. Town have the opportunity to help us. They also have the opportunity to stop us. So it's important that we work closely with them. I see no evidence that that won't happen at the moment, but it's important, since we're at early stages, to get this noted down. So I ask the council to request that the planning authority ensures the surface water drainage plan is reviewed and approved by the local flood agency before any planning decision is made. So far, as I said, this is not happened. On landscaping, I ask that any decision is deferred until the final plans have been submitted, and that this includes the benefits arising from our flood prevention scheme, not only for the residents living in Warren Bridge, but also for the biodiversity in Bridge. Your support has been invaluable so far, and your continued support will be a real benefit to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Are there any other people wishing to speak from the floor about this application? If not, do any of my colleagues have any questions either for Mr. Wrigley or for town or both? Councillor Shore.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for your informative presentation. Two things occurred to me. Is it possible to get the presentation back up again? And in your I think it was your first slide, you showed what we had seen previously, which was the, going back, I can't talking. It seemed to me that what seems to have changed between what we saw before and what they're showing us now is that the development, which is, yes, that one. So I'm not quite sure what those, I'm not quite sure what these are.
Great.
Yeah. So they are houses.
Oh, right.
So the previous scheme had two different house types, so that's what it's showing. So the orange is one house type and the grey is a different house type.
That kind of explains, because it looks in the later things as though everything had shifted in that direction. Their house is the same, that boundary must be roughly the same.
Yeah.
I said, oh, you've answered that for me.
Yeah, so I appreciate
I was just confused between what you might call phase one and phase two. The other thing, which is, I think, rather slightly more important, particularly for local residents, you are more than aware that this side of the road,
Yeah.
right up until I think there, is conservation area.
Yeah.
That field is not in the conservation area. It probably would have been had there been houses there 20, 30 years ago, but it's not, that's the way it is. What you've not shown, and I'd be curious to see if you've got such slides, is what that's actually going to look like from the conservation area. Everything that you've shown is on the site, not from Benningfield Road. I'm curious to know what it's going to look like to everybody else from the outside, not from the inside.
Yeah, I don't think we have a visual from the road, but it's worth remembering that we have this section here, which is being retained, and it's essentially
Sure.
loads of sort of greenery, shrubbery, trees, etc. So it's not going to be, it's not going to be, you'll be able to see this full elevation from the road. It's going to be, in the most part, I imagine, hidden.
Okay,
So that's partly why we don't have a visual, because
The section of the plan might.
yeah, you can see, because, well, you say that, but there are no trees between the roads.
It's not helpful, is it?
you don't see the road there, so the trees are here.
You go back to the previous one, that might show that.
Yeah, okay, it's just the two seem a bit contradictory.
It's
Yeah.
because it cuts it off.
Okay.
It cuts it off.
Oh, I see. what you
So
mean.
this road here
Yeah,
is this road here. It's not this
Okay,
road.
so what you're saying is that they're largely hidden from anybody passing by.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the hill there?
So
Well,
it's-
it goes down,
yeah,
but
it goes down, and then it's also,
that first set of buildings is on almost the ridge.
and it's also slightly,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a raised section up front.
Okay, thank you for that, and sorry to
No,
bug you
no,
about
no.
my understanding of the site plan.
It's a flow.
Well, I'm impressed by both speakers. And this could be a really good example of a building coming in, doing some houses, but in a way that doesn't upset the residents. And is,
That's what we all want.
sympathetic. I mean, I'm a flood warden, so I know that. Yeah. And that's the issue. The number one issue for me is, if it's not approved by the flood authority or whatever, they're going to happen. Because we cannot afford any more pressure on that stream. You think the need is bad, it's your little stream that's the worst one of the lot. And this gives us the most trouble, although I've seen the need being a bit nasty at times. But there's that brook, that's a really, really bad flooding to the whole town. And it's the one that has impacts on houses more than anything else. So, that's my view.
Yeah.
It's got to be improved, and the flood mitigation has to be correct. And I know you've had a look at it, but without that approval, so I like the fact that you're talking to each other, and I like the fact that there's communication, you're being sympathetic and doing everything right so far. But you understand the key.
Yeah, completely, and I know, and rightly pointed out, we've had a list of additional information requests from the LLFA, which we are putting together at the moment, which will mean they can comment on what they need to comment on. I mean, as I said, we're fully aware of when we started putting this design together, the issue, and we've been as sympathetic as we can with that, and yeah, as I say, we're very, very happy to work together to propose a solution, but it's sort of since, it's funny once it's going on, I mean, timing wise, it's almost very appropriate, isn't it? Because it's going along very much sort of alongside each other, but it's sort of this slightly separate. But yeah, we obviously need to agree with the LMFA on our approach.
Councillor Osborne, and I'm very aware the gentleman that wants to speak, so.
Yeah, forgive me if it does detail this somewhere, but are all the properties going to be for sale? None of them will be association houses, right? They're all.
No, they're all for sale, because we're at 14 homes, which is,
Right, okay.
Whether coincidentally or not, the cut-off for affordable housing was 15.
Right, okay, thank you. And, with that in mind, I know that you can't put the costs on them, but are these likely to be a high luxury home, or are they going to be more affordable for retirement age people that aren't at that level? Do you have any idea?
Yes,
of that?
we, as you say, we're not quite at that
Yeah.
level of having prices, etc. But what I will say is that, I mean, you'll see from the materials that I've shown, it's not a quick flip development type. You know, sake of some purpose, but that's not what we're proposing here. This is very much sort of high quality, and it will be sort of slightly higher end in terms of pricing compared to something that might have, you know, UPVC windows and plastic rain goods, etc. But yes, as I said, we're very much sort of angling towards the downsizing community, of which we know that there are loads of people in Amdale sort of wanting the opportunity or wanting something to move into, and what these homes will do is it will mean that people move out of those larger houses and sort of free up the larger family houses in Amdale for actual families to move into, which is, you know, far more efficient than we want. So we do see it as serving a sort of a real sort of serving a bigger purpose within Amdale.
Many of my colleagues had any questions, because if not, I'm going to ask the gentleman at the back, who's very patiently waiting.
I can see parking for 8 cars.
It's not particularly obvious. So you've got, there's parking here, 4 of which are for the allotments, and then the rest of which are for the allocated for the homes. And then you also have parking spaces, there's a couple here, and then in front of the terrace houses here.
So the allotment people have 4,
Yes.
and there are, it's like 8, 16, there's about 20 in total.
22, I think. 22 plus the 4.
Yeah.
I'll allow myself the luxury of a question before I wrap this part up. But this site's been talked about forever and a day. And I certainly remember when we were being presented to many years ago, one of the things that the council at that time was keen on was sight lines through the development.
Yeah.
And whilst there's a nice break between, as it were, the rear set of properties providing the sight line through, you can't see it from the Bedford Road because the properties in front block it. Was any thought given to providing a sight line that went straight through the development rather than the setup that we see there?
Sight lines is definitely something that we consider when putting this together, not in part because future residents that have more that is important to them. I mean, as we've sort of discussed, you actually have, in terms of views from the road, you have sort of trees and shrubbery in the front here, so actually you're not going to get, other than perhaps here, which actually you probably will get that continued view through, because if you think that it's a much higher ground here and goes down to much lower down here, we're likely to retain those views through here. But yeah, that's in terms of sort of the exact sight lines once you're sort of inside the development. We haven't modeled those yet, but it's certainly something that we've been considering.
If I may, also, because I live directly opposite the outgoing.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so before, when it was broken in half, you had a sight line, but no on the front. At set 6, or whatever it was, you had a sight line through, but there was no house opposite. So there's a driveway and there's a hedge. These current sight lines are actually for people who live facing it. This is a better proposal than we had before. Because if I'm to be brutally honest, my bedroom window now looks down the drive. Okay, and I'm the house on the left, then there's a drive. Then there's a hedge, which is about the size of a double-fronted house, and then the first house of the conservation, the first old house, is looking skew width down the inbound entrance hall. So myself talking to that house, well, we actually perceive that this is a better solution than we had. Back a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. That was helpful. And one last one. Looking at it, as it were, the other way, you go the other side of the brook, currently it's open land all the way down to the Stokewell Road, which of course means that conversely you can see back up from the Stokewell Road towards this. And you're suggesting that the rear of these properties will be rendered rather than stone faced. I appreciate we've just been talking about the cost of these buildings, and I imagine that if they were stone faced on all sides, it's going to be that bit more expensive. But on the other hand, it would mean that the view from the Stokewell Road would arguably rather be more in keeping with the town's general appearance than what you're suggesting. Any views on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously these aren't going to be completely open, with the sort of the boundary treatment is to be determined, but for reasons such as privacy, as Mark's been discussing, you're not going to be completely open at the back here, so, you know, in terms of that, because if you remember, going back to this section, you'll see a lot of that slate roof, and that will still be slate, but I can't imagine, I mean, you can see what we're looking at in terms of fence line here. I can't imagine from down here, you're going to be seeing any of that rendered, to be honest. I think we're going to be seeing that slate, which is obviously in keeping with the slate.
I was going to draw it to a close, but
Well, just
maybe the hour comes, so Mr. Reddy, do speak.
Just to clarify, are you talking from the little bridge that goes over the little brook? Because there, you'd be looking side on, just almost that sideline that you see. So you would be looking at the sides of the building.
I was thinking more actually
that's
from
the
Stokewell Road as you were driving out of town and coming into it,
You,
right across the field.
by the cemetery? Because I obviously live past that every single day, and you can't see that at all. Other than Warren Bridge, when you're on the Warren Bridge.
Yeah, as you're going across Warren Bridge, for example, you can see up.
Yes, it's the side, I think, is that side aspect, I think you would see from there. I don't know what the construction materials are, I didn't catch that, sorry.
Right, I'm conscious of the fact you've already gone past 8 o'clock, so I'm going to leave the questions there. Your item is the first one that we're going to come to, and the next couple of items should hopefully only take a couple of minutes. So we'll follow our agenda, move on to declarations of interest. Firstly, are there any disclosable pecuniary interests?
And I live on Benningfield Road near this development, which we'll be discussing later on.
Do you think that it affects the value of your property? Because if it isn't, it could be another interest rather than
Well, I raised it here, I mean, who knows? In reality, no one can sell a house in Ireland that currently stands with flat. They think that they're going to sell these houses, they're confident, but that's beside the point.
Yes, I'm going to a point. But were you served with a notice of this application?
Yes, I was.
You did. Might be that
It might property could go up or down, who knows? I have no idea. I'm just raising it.
Yeah, I'll leave it to you to decide which it should be.
Yeah.
So Clark, I've noticed there's an application by Amble School on here, so
We're going to go with other interests, I think.
yes.
Maybe
I don't really have a
financial,
financial interest.
if they give you a percentage of the house.
In the teacher's salary.
Yeah.
I doubt that's going to happen.
Somewhat optimistic. Right, that is it, as far as I'm aware. In which case, minutes of the last meeting, that was the one on the 23rd of June. Present myself, Councillor Chesser, Councillor Osborne, Councillor Quartermain and Councillor Adams. These have been circulated. Are these minutes agreed? Yes. Seconded by anybody? No. Right, all those in favour?
Can I vote? I didn't turn up. I think I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been working this one out for years, haven't we? Still not got it.
Yes, it's the. Right, well that brings us on to this application. Now bear in mind, it is a reserved matters application. it already has an outline permission for development. That outline permission has fixed the access and egress point. And I know that before we had our views around that, but that's not the discussion effectively tonight. But there is plenty arguably that could be discussed. We can say that because we spent half an hour just chatting about that application with town and with local residents. So, anybody want to kick off?
Well, the other thing I was going to say is, ain't gonna happen.
You will perhaps recall, if you read the notes that I circulated, that the very first item in terms of consultee comments was the legal local flood assessment team at NNC does not support the application and requires further information regarding surface water drainage arrangements. Indeed, NNC Highways also didn't want to support it because they wanted more information. And NNC Ecology, as Mr. Ridley pointed out, say, hang on a minute, what biodiversity net gain, recalculate a biodiversity net loss? Other than that, NNC Waste, as it were, wanting some usual conditions attached, there are no other interesting comments in the report, or at least they weren't when put this together. It's a highly sensitive site, as Councillor Shurer observes. Whilst it isn't in the conservation area, it's proximate to it. The planning statement which accompanies this in the report does make reference to that fact and to the fact that there are listed buildings on Benfield Road itself, but suggests that effectively this development would have no significant impact on them. I'm not sure I would particularly disagree, provided that the aspect from the front looks right. And I was interested by the gentleman who said that the point about sightlines, which we got awfully exercised about in the past, it looks like actually people are happier with what's proposed now than what in an abstract way we were thinking of, which would be nice for people walking along Benfield Road or driving along Benfield Road to still be able to see through there down towards the Stoke Hill Road in the way that you can at present when it's open. However, I'm conscious of what residents have said, and it might be that we should leave well alone. Coupled to which, if you think about the way that that's been configured, not quite sure how, if the entrance is fixed where they are, they could separate that front bit off from the town centre of the properties. I don't think it would be feasible. And this is a plan, of course, which is for far fewer properties than at one time has been suggested. Seem to have a figure of 33 in my mind from some while back. So it's Chester is nodding in agreement. It's also right to point out that there are benefits to this application. There is an attached section 106. As ever, were we consulted about it? Were we asked for any views about it? The answer is no, we weren't. It contains provisions in relation to primary education facilities, secondary education facilities at Prince William. Primary facilities are, interestingly enough, in East Northamptonshire.
Yes.
But of course, East Northamptonshire doesn't technically exist anymore, so I'm not quite sure how that comes in. And for library facilities, again, it doesn't, as far as I can see, specifically relate to Angle. But part of the section 106 is the retention of the allotments.
Yes.
And I know we've been lobbied before by the allotment keepers, as it were, that they were very anxious that the allotment area was not lost, possible that it could be enhanced. And this proposal effectively, as I read it, is that the millers would retain the allotments and effectively let them out to the allotments. Or potentially, they might offer it to the town council, whether for cash or whether simply on the basis that then we are responsibility. We're not deciding today on whether the town council does or doesn't assume responsibility for that. We're rather more just concentrating on the fact that that's part of the package, the allotments are retained, and we have the benefit of the walk through the development that will enable you to walk along the side of the Lipton Brook. Councillor.
I think, as I said in my little talk, I think it's actually really nice to know that the residents are not objecting. They're quite, they accept that this can happen, as long as all the conditions that have been set are made. So I really don't see there's an issue, but I think we're going to make a decision that has to be based upon those three organisations that you mentioned, including the flood authorities, approving this, and their simple answer is we need more information. And if we could also resolve the issue about the shrubberies, I know it sounds a bit thingy, but the biodiversity, while we get rid of them, when we're going to put new one, it's a good point to say, we shouldn't be removing it, unless it's to do with access, but then we'll have to see. I'm in favour, as long as we get those three things sorted, basically. We've got the people that are locally affected by it saying, we're not objecting, so.
Does anybody have any alternative or additional views?
No, I think that sounds a high view. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Some of my main worry, they are very kind of off. I don't know how they got
The
this
terraces.
I know, I can see it there.
It's nice to see terraces back.
But it's the flooding that worries me.
yes. Obviously, we are not civil engineers. We ourselves are not competent to take that view. What we are in a position to do is to say that we are aware of the residents' concerns, that the town's flood warden is particularly aware of the issue, and that therefore nothing should be done unless and until the assessment team are happy, that we would want, obviously, highways to be happy too, and that we note what ecology said, that we note that residents have asked for increased trees, whether by not taking out any that are currently scheduled to come out, or by putting in more, and that what we want is a development that certainly doesn't adversely impact biodiversity. Personally, quite worried about again, more worried about an issue if it gets worse. And that issues of privacy should be factored in. And if people are generally happy with that approach, it seems to reflect the views of the
And that's
local people
privacy for the
insofar as they've been expressed to us.
That's the privacy of the people already there.
Yes, as opposed to people who are going to be there.
Yeah.
Privacy, as we will see, will feature later on. Rather anticipate, yes. Lisa would like me to write down. Right, land adjoining Pexley Court. An open fronted two-bay garage.
What is the massive damage?
It's
It's not that massive.
Um,
It's 6,000 millimetres. So it's
Oh, it wasn't
6
metres.
metres.
yeah,
I
I think my thought that whatever measurements were being used were rather different to ones that are actually being used. If you see the site plan with the garage on it, and you see the little drawing of the garage, which we'll have up in a minute, you can do if we can find it, it's unremarkable. It is, if you like, open plan. So the front doesn't have doors or anything on it, big enough for two vehicles. It's essentially a wooden structure with proper roofing to match the property itself, and sufficient for two vehicles. And highways don't object, provided there is a condition that says permanently the front should remain open plan. If you pop up some drawings, so
It's like a car.
there you can see, it's more like a carport almost than a garage. And in fact, I think highways almost do refer to it in their submission as a carport rather than a garage. And so where's the site indication? I can't see any obvious
No.
issues with this. There were no public comments on the board when I looked at it. You can see that anybody actually would be affected by it, given where it is. Is there no objection? No objection? Good. Old Blackstone. If this seems familiar, it's because it is. Because we responded to this application last month. And I set out what we had said, which was no objection to the proposed external works, subject to any contrary view of the conservation officer. And in terms of the internal works, we said, provided the conservation officer is satisfied, the proposed internal works would not adversely impact any important historical fabric and would not cause any unacceptable loss of historic fabric. OGC would not object to the proposed internal works. The conservation officer was not happy. He didn't have a problem with the external works, which mainly, essentially, was practically putting an event in the roof, which you might be able to see. But downstairs, there was going to be a big opening. And essentially, the conservation officer did not like that. Said it was far too big, and it shouldn't be any wider than in effect a pair of sort of doors. And they've obviously reacted to that and come back with a plan that narrows it to that. But in fact, then transports from upstairs a pair of doors and actually puts them in that gap. So that instead of it being kind of open plan, you've now got an area where there are doors, which either open or closed, which appears to meet the concern of the conservation officer, given that we said that as long as the conservation officer was happy, we'd be happy. It would seem to follow as night follows day that our responses, if the proposed changes are such that the conservation officer's concerns are allayed and the conservation officer is happy, we're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Not true. Tree officers.
Which brings us on to another application for a small housing development. This one is small in the sense that so this is to put 4 properties onto land by the side of the old sanatorium building. So if you imagine you were coming up New Road, it's more or less, the old sand is more or less in front of you. And so the land that's to be potentially built on is to the side, described by the school that owns it as being used for overspill parking and for maintenance for parking. And they're at pains to point out that they have large estates and that losing that area for parking really displaces it to somewhere else in the estate. It's not much greater.
You can't really
parking
see
issue.
it. You don't really see it.
So the site, 3,326 square metres, 4 2.5-storey detached dwellings with double garages. 3 at 1.4 square metres, 1 at 1.2 square metres. The garages are for some reason, slightly varying in size between 56. And 66. And there is the development.
Yeah.
And there you can see the entrance from the Blackburn Road, and you'll see that it's sort of more opposite number 18 than it is on 16. What you don't hugely see, unless, if you could,
Street scene.
well, I was thinking, I've been lobbied by the next door neighbour to this development today, who is former councillor David Wood, who lives in the property adjoining this site and has concerns about the height of these buildings at 2.5 stories, and about the loss of privacy, because there are dormer windows that would look out, in effect, straight into his rear garden. He suggested that possibly by a realignment, that might reduce the overlooking impact. He has also said that he would be happier if there were 3 on there and not 4, because of the impact on him. He's also expressed some concern because there are, as he puts it, a wide variety of species of trees planted around the Eversum, not, he says, fully reflected by the tree report which supports the application. He points out that on the 29th of April, the school cut down a perfectly good plane tree that was in the middle of the grassed area of the summit. So there you see an impression of the buildings from the road, or at least an impression in the sense of a building, because you can't see the whole development from that angle. It's quite tall, but there are other tall buildings. There are also smaller buildings. I guess it's the size of the buildings, the number of the buildings, and the fact that this is 4 more properties coming onto Blackburn Road. Councillors will recall a recent application to develop 9 houses on the site of the old Abbott House, which, with these 4, mean that at the time those 2 developments have occurred, there could be 13 more houses on that side of the road, which is the Blackburn Road, which is a busy road at best of times. So maybe not. It may be just the timing, but there literally weren't any comments to report to one another today. So we've no idea of what highways views or anything else is going to go. Although highways seem to me far more concerned with, as it were, form than substance. In other words, they have a template of what access ways should be, and as long as the access way is like that, seems to be they don't much care how many properties are disgorging onto a particular road at any time.
I mean, it's really annoying. These are going to be nice houses, but they're not nice houses. And I think it goes against the scene there. You've got some really old houses, obviously. Really old houses. And I didn't think it would have a massive impact, but now I'm seeing these, I'm just going, yeah. Sorry. And I think they could do better.
Yeah.
Because I think this would be an eyesore in some respect. I feel they could do better. Because I do feel it's an eyesore, and you've got some really nice houses. You've got the sanatorium, which is lovely. You've got houses opposite that are lovely, and you've got the 2 nice, you've got Deputy Head's house.
One of the things that, as you can see,
It's a mix, isn't
the developer puts into its design and access statement is some photographs of properties within the vicinity, and one gets the impression they're mixed.
They are.
Which they are, it's very diverse.
They missed out some of the nicer, some of the old houses. It's just sort of,
They've chosen.
let's just miss out this one that's really old. There's a couple of really old houses there.
Yeah.
So, councillor Fuller doesn't like, the way they look. Let's go back one, because this is an application for outline planning. So if you like, our first consideration needs to be, is the site suitable for residential development? Because if we say it isn't, and then we'll see what they say. We might feel that it's suitable, but we're not necessarily happy with that. Councillor Clark.
I've just got three main issues about the site. No pro-school, anti-school, whatever. The first is Blackthorn Road, and we have a speed detector device for the last few months on Blackthorn Road, just a couple hundred metres away from this site. According to the data we get from our indicators, our detectors, Blackthorn Road is the busiest road in Amble. In June, we had 72,651 vehicles go past the site, which 17%, 12,651 were over the speed limit. It's also about 150 metres up from this is the only accident black spot in Amble, where there's been a fatality, a bike accident, and someone's driven off the road, all within very close proximity to this entrance. So I think highways need to consider that. Is this a good place to get, I think I counted 16 car parking spaces?
Yeah.
Is this a good place to get that many vehicles coming in and off the road? And how? That was my first point.
I'll just add to that. There's also a bus stop almost immediately outside.
There is, it's not operational, but
Is it not?
they bring them in and out regularly, so it could be,
Yeah, I haven't realised it's not operational.
at the moment, it could become. A second point is the point of parking. I have an unusual insight in this, in that I spend a lot of time on Saturday afternoons just the other side of this plot on a little buggy. And probably most weekends I pull one or two cars out of there that get bogged with their high performance tyres. I would say most Saturdays there's between 20 and 40 vehicles parked in there. And the school might say that it does have large grounds, which it does, but I think before it goes any further, they would need to provide clear plans of where those 20 to 40 vehicles are going to be parked. I know in the last week of term, last year, there were 15 or 16 minibuses parked there for over a week. So again, where will they go? Because otherwise they're going to be displaced around town, or visiting parents will park on Blackthorn Road, which we know is the busiest road in Amble, etc., etc. And linked to that, there's the fact that it's not just what's called within the school the versus paddock, but it's quite a lot of the old stand grounds next to it as well. And there are lots of lovely old trees there. So how's that going to be dealt with in net biodiversity? And my third point, to do with your comment, I suppose, for how few comments there are, is I know a lot of residents locally haven't yet been notified by NNC and given.
The person who approached me today said they only received notice on Saturday.
Right. So given NNC's recent history with Weetabix factories and so on in Corby, one would hope that they would put the notification as broadly and widely as they could to lots of houses who would be affected on Blackthorn Road. So
Can I just check one of the statistics?
You may.
Which I wrote down. You say that 17% of the vehicles in Blackthorn Road are speed.
in June 2026. It's often more than that, sometimes less, but that's a good mid-range number.
And how far from the school?
From the entrance to Pavilion Drive, 20, 30 metres.
Ah. Yeah, well, there's that aspect as well. Initially, I wasn't worried, but the more I think about it, the more I just don't like it.
For the density they're putting in there, it's not great.
If it was like the equivalent as a budget, you've got the old, the deputy head house and the old place.
Two.
That's the sort of thing that you would expect to go in there.
Well,
To give it that sort of sense of, you have got a lovely side view. If you look going up there with some really nice houses, I know
Well,
the
yeah.
Northern is nice.
And
A
everything is
few
set,
mixed houses on the right. but-
everything is set back. So I cycle up there every day.
Yes, you don't
And
see it, that's what I'm saying.
There's a hedge and a house behind it, whereas this would be
In your face.
overwhelming. But site-wise, traffic, offset parking, biodiversity and notification.
And is it worth it for just two houses? Losing.
Has Ian left anybody anything else to say?
No,
Because that's
I don't
it. No, I mean, that's really helpful. Does anybody else have a view?
As I said, I've checked for an answer.
Well, I agree with what's been said, so I endorse what's been said. The Blackpool Road is a problem already. This is going to do nothing but add to it.
I'm just conscious of the fact that the voice might not be picked up on the mic from our machine.
So do you want me to repeat what I just said? So I agree with what Councillor Clark has just said. I fully endorse what he said. Blackpool Road, which we know is a major problem already in terms of volume, business road in the town, most likely to experience speeding, very near an area where designated black spot. And this is going to add to those problems, not alleviate them.
Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, I don't disagree with what's been said, but controversially, I quite like the design of the houses. So, and I do think we've got to be mindful of making our town accessible to people looking for properties like this as well. You know, we talk about properties, small properties and affordable properties and things like that. But if we want our town to carry on developing and to carry on existing and to attract, obviously these are the wealthier sector, aren't they? To attract people like that to the town, we can't dismiss things like this straight away. I do agree with things that have been said about access and things like that, but yeah, it's just sort of very much dependent on that really. I don't think that the design of them is so awful. We've got red brick properties on Blackpool Road already. Maybe they need tweaking, maybe the heights of them, but I don't think they're so awful.
I just think they could do a better job. I think the issue I have is they could do a better job than that.
I'll just make the point, as it's an outline application, what we might want to do is append to our response the fact that there is a bit of a diversity of view about certain aspects of it, shall we say. But Councillor Coulter.
Yeah, I think I'm actually agreeing with most of the things around here. What I am concerned about is the timing. And I would like, if possible, that the residents of the area would have more time to put their comments in, and therefore we could have a more balanced view, and they, residents of the area, feel that they've had their opportunity to comment, good or bad, as the case may be.
I have a great deal of sympathy for that, but the trouble with planning is that it works to a formula in terms of when notices go out, how long you've got to comment and so on. The reality is it wouldn't fit a cycle in which we could just say, well, we defer decisions to our meeting next month. But we're going to have to put in response before. I think we can certainly make the point that we were very conscious of the fact that it's likely we're going to have a limited amount of time, so we haven't had much resident.
Yes.
But I think there seems to be a general concern about actually the suitability of the site, given its location, for residential development. And I suppose, quite apart from the might call Blackpool Road related issues, we need to be conscious of the fact that there are 130 dwellings of historic dwellings in Petersburg, 130 dwellings at St Christopher's Drive, that's 260. 50 dwellings at the rear of the cemetery, which is, where are we, 310, 9 more on the extension to Old Bridge, and I could go on and on and on. I mean, the reality is, we just seem to be building more and more and more houses without any infrastructure development whatsoever. And with a small scale development like this, you're not going to see any significant Section 160 agreements, I suspect. And that aspect of it worries me as well. I know it has been a theme of this council that we should almost bang on about it. Banging his head against a bit of a brick wall and saying it, perhaps particularly at an outline stage, but the fact of the matter is, just does not have an infinite capacity to take on more and more dwellings. In my opinion. So I think it is an objection. I'll try and distill that down and let you have that one as well. Happily, the next one is unlikely to tax us to any great extent because, rather like a previous application, this one might have a familiar ring to it, mainly because we've looked at it very recently. We looked at it at a stage where there was a listed building application. And basically what seems to have happened is that no application for full planning permission was submitted at the same time. And because of the fact that the site is within a scheduled ancient monument, you have to have planning permission before you can apply for the necessary scheduled monument type. And say, all of this is because of delivery vehicle back to the wall. But nevertheless, that's why the applications come back. Again, to be consistent, we didn't object previously. I've not seen a reason why we suddenly become concerned now, but that's why it's there. It seems to be just a formality because we didn't put the right application in the first place. So rather than a truncated discussion on that and saying it must be no objection, surely. Let's move on. There are no planning outcomes noted, whether that's because there haven't been any or because we haven't been notified any on which the next item is to review our terms of reference. Those of you who were at full council, I mentioned this then. Our current terms of reference conclude with the following. In the event that a meeting is not called, the chair of the committee will be given delegated powers to submit comments on behalf of the council if it is not possible for the application to be considered at the next full council meeting. We've actually used that for some considerable time, and we've used it very occasionally, the situation didn't rise that much, but often on various occasions until we got to the old house when we didn't have a quorum meeting. I put in a response. I put in what I might call a defensive response in the sense of, if you object, you can withdraw an objection, but if you don't object, you can't then sort of retrospectively decide you want to. And I made an objection actually to the some of the concerns who have expressed amounts about that from the local in general. The developer was not at all happy with me or the council and started chuntering about legal action and this violence and so on, forcing the clerk to look into it. And the clerk then advised me that in her view, we can't do it that way, because it is open to In consequence, the terms of reference that we had approved at our last planning meeting, which were going to go before full council for approval last week or whatever it was, didn't because of this issue. And so they're back before us now. And it begs the question, well, what do we do? I'm sorry to say that I've managed to replace the 3 lines with about
Tell us what we do.
a dozen. I'm not sure, I think this works. In the event that it is not possible for the committee to respond to a consultation within the time allowed to do so, for whatever reason, including a scheduled meeting being or becoming important, then the committee chair may not must, A, ask the planning authority for an extension of time to respond, and or B, convene an emergency meeting of the committee, and or C, refer any application to full council for it to consider making a consultation response. That's no more than has been our practice for years anyway. But if it shall prove impossible to secure an adequate extension of time and or to convene and hold an emergency meeting of the committee and or to refer any application to full council in time, either to agree an in-time consultation response, thereby rendering it impossible for a consultation response to be submitted in time, then the chair should ask the town clerk or the deputy town clerk to consider submitting a consultation response to the planning authority, and may invite the town clerk or deputy town clerk to take into account the views of the chairman and or any other member of the planning committee on any application in doing so. Because the clerk can, presumably by definition, if the deputy clerk can respond. But of course, our present clerk, certainly not with us for the foreseeable future, but still with us for some time, hasn't been used to having to do this. And if she was suddenly asked to do it, I'm not absolutely sure how she'd go about trying to do it. But to remove the element of it being, as it were, one person's decision, who isn't the clerk, if the clerk is simply invited to submit a response and to take into account a view, A, she doesn't have to submit it, and B, she doesn't have to listen to the response. In practice, chances are that the clerk, be it Emma or be it Lisa or be it whoever, is unlikely, in my view, not to put in a response if requested to do so by a chair of the committee, and will probably put in the response that was being put in from the committee. The point is they don't have to. So it's a slight difference, as it were, to the way it was.
It's just a more formal word.
If we're agreed that we try that, because we won't have a full council meeting in August, it occurs to me that we might be able to run past Danny Moody, who I think Alex did speak to, both our existing terms of reference and, if you like, this proposed change to them. And ask him if he thinks that this proposed change is acceptable, on the basis that if he says it is, then that can be the recommendation to full council in September. And if they agreed, it will become our terms of reference from September. Obviously, if he says not, after that, I think the council back on again.
I've just got a thought, because what you're saying about the clerk, when I think our deputy clerk, who sits in all our meetings and knows exactly what we feel and think, I think, why don't we make that one of the deputy clerk's roles rather than the clerk? Because at least we have somebody who knows us well and understands how we think. That would prevent the issue of a clerk who's not involved in planning, not understanding how it works, having to do something when they're not sure, as we've got somebody who I trust to do that properly anyway.
take the point entirely, particularly in our own setup. I do it mainly because it may be that it is if you like, something that only the clerk can do, or the clerk can delegate to a deputy, but not necessarily the other way around. So if you put it as both, in practice with us, it might work a particular way. Councillor Shore.
Two things. First of all, to answer Councillor Fuller's concern. The simple answer is you can't talk to the town clerk. It has to be the town clerk and only the deputy clerk if they are deputising the town clerk. So,
That's what I would suggest the role was.
you can't bypass
No, that's fine.
the way that you were suggesting. That's that point. My second point is that if you look later on the agenda, it suggests that we've got a meeting in April, in August. Is that really the case?
Yes.
So we have another meeting of this committee before the next full council.
We do, which is why I'm wondering if we could get a response from Danny Moody before our next meeting, with that, the terms of reference on again. Either we're going to have to look at them again,
I just
we
wonder
could then formally put it forward to the full council meeting in September.
I personally would prefer to be able to read rather than listen to what you read out. So I would prefer it's put on the agenda
For the next
August,
meeting.
so that we can look at it in advance.
And you get your answer.
Because to be honest, I can't remember half of what you said.
No, not surprised. In an ideal world, it would have been done sooner, but I actually typed it up.
And I appreciate what you're trying to do, David. I'm just pragmatically saying,
Yeah.
I think it would be easier
No, I agree.
to defer it to August.
All right, let's put terms of reference back on.
Just quick, I agree totally with Councillor Curran there. Maybe we can do in parallel, because it'd be interesting to see if we actually say this is quite a good idea, but also get Danny Moody's comments on it, and then we then can agree in August, neighbours, to the
Absolutely.
full council in September.
I'll circulate it to everybody later this evening when they get home. Because I'm sorry I didn't manage to do it beforehand, but I only drafted it at 6, so I suspect I circulated it at 6. Most of you would receive it anyway. But we can do that. If before our next meeting, there's a sort of general feeling, let's put this to Danny Moody, there's nothing to stop us doing that.
I just think
We can talk about it, but if it's on the agenda for next time,
We look at it.
hopefully with a view to putting a full recommendation for council.
But it can't go full council until September, whatever it is, 12th.
15.
So we've got time.
There we go.
So, right, that seems to bring us to any other relevant matters for report only. Councillor Shore?
No, you clarified the fact that we do actually have an August meeting. I was just a bit confused about that because we tend not to have committee meetings in August, but.
The problem is, if there are plans that need responding to,
No,
there are plans that need responding to.
anyway, that was my only question, and it's been answered.
In the unlikely event there are that, there won't be a meeting, I suspect. There we go. Councillor Carroll? Nothing. Councillor Chester?
Nothing.
I'll be involved,
What, next time?
so.
Oh, sorry, I did have something, David. Can you come back to me afterwards?
Yeah. Councillor Osborne?
Yeah, just one point of information. I was wondering if Lisa could chase the McCarthy thing, because this seems to be dragging on and on. I'd be interested to see, because that site is, as we all know, starting to get quite dilapidated.
Oh, you mean the,
Jarrah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, on that tab, you can't now see the front door of the listed building because they're completely overgrown.
Agreed.
So, if nothing else, if not the site owner, at least tidying up town.
Yeah, I just want to draw people's attention, in case they haven't seen it, it is now public. North have released their plan that recommends the suggestion our town council put forward about the changing of the parish boundary. I don't know if you've seen that. And that's now out for consultation on phase 2. Public can go on there and respond by, I believe, the 5th of October. So I just want to draw people's attention
Yes,
to that.
and in fact, we probably should have that on our agenda for next time. I think literally it came out earlier today.
It was only announced, I think, today.
So, yeah, it was brought to my attention, I haven't even had a chance to look at it, but it was made aware of what it essentially said. It may be that we would have no further comment, although we had proposed a number of changes. And the only one that seems to have been accepted of the number of changes we've put forward is the one that was also supported by Blackpool, which is perhaps therefore not too surprising because the two affected parishes are seen from the same time period. On one of them, which was Old Farm Close, which is technically Blackpool, it sits right on the edge of the boundary, we'd said, nonsense, it should be part of land. Blackpool said, but the residents want to stay part of Blackpool because they hold one. At least one resident contacted NMC directly and said, we don't want to do it. And currently, therefore, that seems to be the position of NMC. So we might want to look at, well, do we want to make further representations? Another thing is that the site, the opposite side of the road to the Cottescott Road development, which we had said, well, look, it would be a nonsense if you shift the Cottescott Road development into Andor Parish and then promptly adopt in your local plan a residential development site on the other side of the road, which will technically be in Blackpool, which will have all exactly the same issues. And for whatever reason, I don't seem to be on that either. So we'll put it on our next agenda. And it may be that in practice, if the responses aren't due to October, we'll be able to have it on in August and if necessary again in September. On which note, before 9 o'clock,
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Dave,
Oops,
there
sorry.
was just that email I sent you as well about the Proskott Meadows.
Right.
Inadequate play equipment, which is
Yeah,
obviously with Simon Fair, Walwell and Harrison,
Oh, yeah.
Harrison and John Huddleston, as you said, we can't say anything about it
Yeah,
other than that it's on all this agenda.
a resident of the Cottescott Meadows site contacted councillors Fairhall, Harrison and Humberstone, saying that he was a resident of the Cottescott Meadows estate. He'd spoken to the developer about the lack of park facilities for older children over before. The developer's response was the parks are built to the drawings. That didn't reassure the resident who felt that this are inadequate. And he points out that the LAP consisted of a small swing suitable for only fours and a small slide, again suitable for only fours. That he suggests isn't adequate. The LEAP consists of climbing frames and balancing equipment, which again, he describes as being totally inadequate. So he had contacted the district councillors and Simon Fairhall had responded. Basically, hadn't been able to look at it, but he was aware of something not dissimilar in Kingsley. And says, depending very much on the longer term ownership of the space, the community could play a part in adding to the provision by supporting, potentially making grant applications to the likes of National Lottery Community Fund and GM Community Fund and North Northamptonshire Council. This depends on land ownership, but there need to be landowners' permission and some form of confirmation of the space being secured for that purpose for a good length of time. I think it's highly unlikely those homes would be the applicant. Happy to help with this matter, but would welcome the thoughts of the town council. Well, that literally came in on Friday afternoon, too late for our agenda. It also half hints at all of those tricky issues, because as a council we have hitherto slightly balked at the idea of, for example, taking over play areas in developments. We do, of course, have responsibility for play areas in more and more location, but we have equally turned them down in other places. Nevertheless, as an issue, it's not a hugely urgent one. There isn't a full council meeting next month anyway, but there is a planning meeting. I'm therefore going to suggest to Lisa that we push it on the agenda. We let Councillor Fairham know that we put it on the agenda, and we let the person who we contacted know that we put it on our agenda. In case we want to make any recommendations to full council, whichever type they might be, or in case we, as a committee, want to approach the developer with suggestions. Thanks for reminding me. I printed it out and completely forgot about it. Right, I think I've still managed to finish it before 9 o'clock. So before anybody else comes up with anything, I'll declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, everybody.
That last thing, you couldn't mention the tale of the person who wanted to do sailing.
Take care, Lisa.
Yeah, see you later.
It's not very clear.
I know you're having this one.
Um,